on Tuesdays with the Tennessee Tribune. I'm Jason Luntz. This week, we decided to do something a little different. We're at the National Public Library in the Civil Rights Room. To celebrate Martin Luther King's March on Washington's 50th anniversary, this month we are doing stories that revolve around the Civil Rights Movement. Today, I have some exciting guests that are doing some amazing things that are really needed in the community. With me, I have the professor and interns for the Cold Case Justice Initiative. Hello, ladies. How are you?
Hi, great. How are you?
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Can you introduce yourselves to our viewers, please?
Well, I'll start. My name is Paula Johnson. I'm a professor of law at Syracuse University College of Law, and I'm the co-director of the Cold Case Justice Initiative.
That's great.
Hi, I'm Valerie Morato. I am a student at the University of Arkansas School of Law, and I'll be entering my final year.
Hi, I'm Emily Quinlan. I graduated from law school last May, and I'm a member of the Tennessee Bar.
Okay, that's great. Now, the first thing that caught my interest was the word cold case. I know there's a television show on that a lot of people like, and I know cold cases are usually people that have been murdered and they haven't been solved yet.
That's right. The Cold Case Justice Initiative, or CCJI, which we often refer to ourselves as, looks at unsolved racially motivated killings that happened during the civil rights era. And so we work with families and communities to try to get information and bring people to justice and hold people accountable for having committed those crimes.
Wow, so how do you go about knowing if you believe the murder was racially motivated?
Well, it's a process of what the circumstances were that we know about the incident or about the crime, as well as the ongoing or further investigation. You know, asking people, looking through documents, doing investigations to find out whether or not race was something that was directly involved or implicated in some way that suggests that that was a significant factor.
Wow. Now, is there a particular time period that the cases have to fall under?
Well, the civil rights era, so primarily during the 60s, but we do look at events that happened during the late 50s as well as in the 1970s. But in the main, it's that civil rights period that is focused, in the 1960s era.
Now, were the individuals that were murdered, did they have to be active in the civil rights movement, or it just had to be people of color during that time period?
No, and not necessarily people of color, although the majority of the victims were Black or African Americans. The civil rights movement was a multi-racial, multi-ethnic, very diverse movement. And so people who might have been victimized in a race-based crime weren't necessarily Black, although the majority of the people were. And not necessarily active themselves in the movement. Some victims were killed simply because of their race. And so not because they were necessarily, a part of an organization like the NAACP or actively soliciting, or doing civil rights work.
Okay, great. Now, what role do your two interns play?
Well, I'll let them explain that to you. They've been here in Nashville and in Tennessee, and they can tell you what kind of work they've been doing.
Oh, that's great.
Part of what we do is talk to members of the community, including church leaders, politicians, people who were active in the civil rights movement back in the 60s and 70s here in Nashville. That's a large portion of what we do. We talk to them to get some context about what was going on at the time period, as well as to see if they have any direct links to victims and victims' families.
That's great.
The other part, so that's really the community outreach and engagement, portion of it. The other portion of it is research. So it's a lot of looking at old newspapers on microfilm. So we're fortunate to be in Nashville where there are a lot of resources in that regard. So down at the Tennessee State Library and Archives, there are a lot of old newspapers on archive. There were 65 African American newspapers published in Tennessee from 1955 to 1980. And there are 14 of those available on archive in Nashville, either at the archives or at Fisk University in their archives. So the other portion has been research. We look through the newspaper articles to find suspicious killings, and then we follow up on those.
Oh, wow, that's great. You know what? And you just taught me something. Did you say, how many newspapers did you say were?
65. According to my research, there could be more.
Could be more than that. Wow. See, I just learned something. That's great.
And one of the important things about what Emily just mentioned in terms of the newspapers, for our work in particular, is that very often when these kinds of killings would happen, the mainstream media did not cover them. But the black newspapers or black media would cover them. So it's really important for us to locate those newspapers, to comb through them and see what sort of, suggests that, something wasn't quite as, we heard or was reported, and it really does warrant further investigation.
That's great. Now, is Nashville the only stop in this program, or have you been to other cities?
We have been to other cities. We recently visited Memphis, and we spoke with a couple of community members in Memphis as well as in Western Tennessee that were really insightful, and we also visited the Civil Rights Museum in Memphis.
Yeah, so although we are, kind of stationed in Nashville, our territory is the whole state of Tennessee. But then CCJI also has other student interns in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Jackson, Mississippi, Jacksonville, Florida, Atlanta, Georgia, and then out of Syracuse.
Also, this is happening throughout the Southeast or Southern.
Yeah, in a number of cities where we have our interns placed who are doing the same work. And we've been doing this work since 2007, and it has continued to expand since the beginning with one case and then more cases as more people came to us and asked for assistance. And as we've done the kind of work that Emily and Valerie have described, looking and finding ourselves that something needs more investigation. And as that has happened over these several years, the project has grown, and we've been able to get more student involvement and place them in cities where we can try to identify, all or as many of the victims of this racial violence that happened during the era as possible. That is our goal. We know that, in addition to people whose names may be known, that there are, untold others whose names have never been known, but the family members know that something happened, to a relative, and they have concerns that maybe that was racially based, maybe it was an organization such as the Klan, or just someone, who had a, racial animus against someone, and they took, their relatives' lives as a result of that. So we have embarked on what we have called our 5 Cities Project. We have students placed in the locations that Emily just mentioned, and they are doing that research to see if there are cases that have never come to light, and also the community outreach that Valerie mentioned to see if people in the communities want assistance in cases that have never been solved. They don't have information about what happened, and we offer our assistance to do that.
Now, how are these people in these the 5 cities you mentioned aware of your program to reach out to you and let you know?
Well, in conversations such as the one we're having with you, media is very important. But again, the outreach effort, we do as much face-to-face, so, we've been based in Nashville. That has allowed Emily and Valerie to make direct contact with people. To call folks, request meetings, tell them about our project, ask if we could speak to them, to their congregations if we're talking about church leaders, community meetings, wherever it is possible for us to go and get an audience with folks and let them know about our work, then we are willing to do that. And again, seriously through the media to let people know that we're doing this work.
Now, how is excuse me, I was wondering when I think about members of the community, has the people that you've met with, have they been friendly? Have they been available to speak about their experiences?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Every single person we've contacted in Nashville has been very, open and welcome and interested in talking to us. And so, those individuals may not know about a specific victim or know the family of a victim of the civil rights era homicides, but they've been very helpful in saying, why don't you talk to this person, this person, this person. So everyone has done a great job of, kind of sending us out there and providing us with more contacts in the community.
Additionally, several members of the Nashville community, as well as some other communities throughout Tennessee, they've taken the extra step. They don't have a direct link to the program. They're not, directly involved with the program, but yet they'll go and they'll make phone calls themselves, and they'll set up meetings for us, and they'll take that extra time and effort so that we can be successful with this initiative.
Oh, that's great. And what about local law enforcement? Is that people that you have to deal with as well, or?
Well, in some way we will, because in cases where there may have been law enforcement involvement, then we're going to want to know what that involvement was, what came of it. If it's still an unsolved case, we're going to want to know, why it remains unsolved. I mean, what was the law enforcement effort? Was it a thorough one or a superficial one? Whatever the case, may be. But we would want to, have some discussion with people who were in the law enforcement community at the time that these crimes occurred.
Okay, that's great. I mean, this is an amazing program, and it's exciting. The last question I had was, what type of students, such as yourselves, would be interested in helping in this kind of program?
I think anybody who's interested in justice, who realizes that even if something happened a long time ago, there are still grieving families, that this is a constant reminder to them of the injustice of losing their family member, and then possibly the injustice of an investigation never occurring or a cursory investigation occurring. So I think anybody who's interested in criminal justice, criminal law, civil rights law, or just the legal system in itself.
That's great.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of law students who recognize the importance of this work and who would be as interested as we were in having this opportunity.
Oh, that's amazing. I really appreciate you taking out the time. And if you want to leave our viewers with, if there's any way they can receive information about the program, give support or information you may need, a website or an email, anything of that nature you can share with them.
Yeah, thank you. We have a website. It's coldcaselaw.syr.edu. So coldcaselaw, all one word, .syr.edu. And people can visit our website to see what kind of work we're involved in. And there's also a means to contact us by email via the website.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I had a chance to see the website, and there's some great information on there, and it definitely caught my eye. I want to thank you ladies again. You're doing some amazing work for the community and for the criminal justice system. It's really appreciated, and we're happy to have you here in Nashville.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And once again, you've tuned into Take 10 on Tuesdays with the Tennessee Tribune. Have a great day. We'll see you next time.